Good day, everyone. Today, we will tackle about the speech of Corazon Aquino before the U.S. Congress happened on September 18, 1986.
Good day, everyone. My task today is to discuss who is Corazon Aquino and present the events that happened before her speech before the U.S. Congress. Who is Corazon Aquino? Maria Corazon Cory Sumulong Cuanco Aquino was a Filipino politician who served as the 11th President of the Philippines from 1986 to 1992. She was born on January 25, 1933, and died on August 1, 2009, in the age of 76. Corazon Canco Aquino was born into a wealthy politician prominent family based in Tarlac Province. She graduated from Mount Saint Vincent College in New York City in 1954, but abandoned further studies in 1955 to marry Benigno Simeon Aquino Jr., who was then promising young politician. They have four kids, namely Benigno Aquino III, Chris Aquino, Victoria Elisa Aquino D., Pinky Aquino Obleda, Maria Elena Aquino Cruz. On February 28, 1986, Corazon Aquino issued Executive Order Number 1 creating the PCGG, or the Presidential Commission on Good Government, which was tasked to go after the Marcos ill-gotten wealth. Aquino, being a revolutionary president by virtue of people power, repealed and abolished repressive laws under her predecessor, restored civil liberties, abolished the 1973 Marcos Constitution, and dissolved the Marcos allies, loyalists, supporters, dominated Batasang Pambansa despite the advice of her Vice President, the only Prime Minister, Salvador Laurel. Now, let us proceed to the events that resulted to the delivery of a speech of Corazon Aquino before the U.S. Congress on September 18, 1986. On August 21, 1983, Ninoy was assassinated at the tarmac of the Manila International Airport. The entire Filipino people mourned for this event and rose opposition against the Marcos government. 2 years after, on November 3, 1985, President Marcos announced that he is ready to call snap election. There was still no declared winner. A week after the snap election, the National Movement of Free Election, or NAMFREL, figures show that Cory and her vice presidential running mate Salvador Doy Laurel are constantly in the lead. But Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, tabulations show that Marcos is leading by 1.2 million votes. 29 computer programmers, many of them are women, walked out from the control center of the National Canvassing Office to protest and deliberate manipulation of the office election results to favor Ferdinand Marcos. The administration dominated Batasan Pambansa declares Marcos as president-elect and Arturo Tolentino vice president-elect. On the same day, Cory is similarly proclaimed president in a mammoth People's Victory rally at Rizal Park. Cory called for a civil disobedience campaign. She urged followers to boycott certain banks, publications, and corporations to bear pressure on Marcos to step down without bloodshed. It was then on February 22, 1986, when Defense Minister Juan Ponce Enrile and Lieutenant General Federal V. Ramos announced through Radio Veritas their withdrawal of support from the Marcos administration. Thousands of people peacefully rally and pray along EDSA Highway in what became known as the People Power Revolution.
The Catholic Church has a big contribution in realizing that particular EDSA People Power Revolution because it was Cardinal Sin who actually called the people, especially the Catholics, the nuns, to come to EDSA to march in order to that People Power Revolution.
In February 25, 1986, Marcos took his oath in national television. However, it was immediately cut off by rebel soldiers. He then flew to Honolulu with his family. By that time, Cory issued her first proclamation stating that public officials must submit their courtesy resignation. It was then on February 22, 1986, when Defense Minister Juan Ponce Enrile and Lieutenant General Federal V. Ramos announced through Radio Veritas their withdrawal of support from the Marcos administration. 1 month after the presidency, Cory issued Proclamation Number 3 proclaiming her government a revolutionary government and suspends the 1973 Constitution installed during the martial law and promulgates a provisional Freedom Constitution. April 23, 1986, Cory issued the Proclamation Number 9 that created a constitutional commission to draft the new charter, truly reflective of the ideals and the aspiration of the Filipino people. The result was a big disappointment to the Filipino people that leads to the revolution for freedom.
Moving on, we have the important historical information found in the documents, the speech of Corazon Aquino before the U.S. Congress. On September 22, 1972, Opposition Senator Benigno Aquino Jr., together with senators, publishers, and anyone who had spoken up for democracy, was arrested at the Manila Hilton Hotel in Ermita, Manila by elements of the Philippine Constabulary Metropolitan Command or the PC Metrocom led by Colonel Romeo Gatan. This arrest happened a day after President Ferdinand E. Marcos signed Proclamation Number 1081 declaring the entire Philippines under martial law. This was the first time that his family lost him. On August 27, 1973, Ninoy was brought back to Fort Bonifacio where he faced a military tribulan on charges of murder, illegal possession of firearms, and subversion. They locked him up in a tiny, nearly airless cell in a military camp in the north. They stripped him naked and held a threat of a sudden midnight execution over his head. Ninoy held up manfully under all of it. For 43 days, the authority would not tell his family what happened to him. On August 13, 1983, Aquino began a week-long fight that took him from Boston to Los Angeles and through Singapore, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Because Marcos had cut off diplomatic relations with Taiwan, the government there was no obligation to cooperate with this regime's goal of keeping Aquino away from Manila. as China Airlines Flight 811 descended into Manila International Airport on August 21, 1983, Aquino warned the foreign journalists traveling with him to have their cameras ready. In a matter of 3 or 4 minutes, it could all be over, he noted with chilling prescience. Minutes after the plane touched down, Aquino was dead, killed by an assassin bullet, so Cory Aquino left American to bury her husband. May 1984. New elections for parliament took place and opposition parties claimed 58 of the 183 available seats, even though there were large allegations of election fraud. Corazon had publicly endorsed all of the candidates running for opposition parties. As Marcos called for snap or early presidential election amid sharp domestic and U.S. criticism over his handling of a growing communist insurgency and a severe economic crisis. Despite of a lack of political experience, Corazon Aquino said that she would consider running against Marcos if 1 million signatures had been collecting urging her to enter the race. And former newspaper publisher Joaquin Rosas, 72, said his group that collected 1,005,882 signatures as of 6:35 p.m. Monday in support for her candidacy. The ultimate result was the election of Mrs. Corazon Aquino as president and Mr. Salvador Laurel as vice president of the Philippines. President Aquino and President Reagan discussed her strenuous effort to bolster the democratic institution of her country and to ensure its security and strengthen its economy. And he assured her that all American wants the Philippine democracy to succeed and to prosper, and that will do what we can help.
What are the contribution and relevance of the document Speech of Corazon Aquino before the U.S. Congress in understanding the grand narrative of Philippine history? So the document is relevant in the Philippine history, especially in the diplomatic and political history, since this has arguably cemented the legitimacy of the EDSA government in the international arena. Moreover, the ideology of the new democratic government can also be seen in the same speech. Furthermore, this document contributed to the Philippine history as it also traced back the first step of the country to restore the democracy that the Marcos government outlawed. This document allows the Filipino to people to know and to not forget the harsh reality during the dictatorship of Marcos. Despite the euphoria following the overthrow of the Marcos government, Aquino faced the massive challenge of restoring the nation. She established a revolutionary government under the terms of a provisional freedom constitution, legally establishing the structure of the government pending the adoption of a permanent, democratically drafted constitution. Lastly, since Corazon Aquino was the first female president of the country, her speech had a strong impact not just in the country but also on the world's perception of women and power. To the world, she is the widow in yellow who topped a dictatorship and a steering show of people power in 1986. To her native Philippines, she is the courageous president who single-mindedly restored the institution of democracy. But to herself, Cory Aquino is a plain housewife who could not refuse her country's call to service.
In conclusion, it shows how democracy was tested in the past and how the previous government treated its people. Even journalists are denied freedom of expression. It also demonstrated how Cory fought for people's freedom and revolution.